If you've been following business news over the past 5 years, chances are you've heard about the proliferation of self-driving car technology. From small startups to industry behemoths and tech giants, everyone is pouring millions of dollars into research and development for these new machines. Of course, there has been some public backlash, but manufacturers insist that self-driving cars are statistically much safer than traditional vehicles. So what exactly will these fleets of autonomous automobiles look like? Today we're exploring self-driving cars, the future of transportation. First, let's look at how self-driving cars will work. Self-driving vehicles are cars or trucks in which human drivers are never required to take control to safely operate the vehicle, also known as autonomous or driverless cars. They combine sensors and software to control, navigate, and drive the vehicle. Various self-driving technologies have been developed by Google, Uber, Tesla, Nissan, and other major automakers, researchers, and technology companies. While design details vary, most self-driving systems create and maintain an internal map of their surroundings based on a wide array of sensors, like radar. Uber's self-driving prototypes use 64 laser beams, along with other sensors, to construct their internal map. Google's prototypes have at various stages used lasers, radar, high-powered cameras, and sonar. Software then processes these inputs, plots a path, and sends instructions to the vehicle's actuators, which control acceleration, braking, and steering. Hard-coded rules like obstacle avoidance algorithms, predictive modeling, and smart object discrimination, for example knowing the difference between a bicycle and a motorcycle, help the software follow traffic rules and navigate obstacles. Partially autonomous vehicles may require a human driver to intervene if the system encounters uncertainty. Fully autonomous vehicles may not even offer a steering wheel. Essentially, self-driving cars are at the point where they can safely drive under ideal conditions. But what about when it's snowing and the car's sensors are coated in ice? Manufacturers are trying to make a series of redundancies to ensure that if one system fails, there are several others to pick up the slack. This is easier said than done, and the failure to ensure safety would spiral into a liability nightmare. So what are some of the precautions these vehicles take to ensure driver safety? First, radar sensors dotted around the car monitor the position of vehicles nearby. Next, video cameras detect traffic lights, read road signs, and keep track of other vehicles, while also looking out for pedestrians and other obstacles. In addition, LiDAR sensors help to detect the edges of the roads and identify lane markings by bouncing pulses of light off the car's surroundings. In case you haven't heard of it, LiDAR is a remote sensing method that uses light in the form of a pulsed laser to measure distances from an object. On top of this, the cars contain ultrasonic sensors. These are planted in the wheels and can detect the position of curbs and other vehicles when parking. Finally, a central computer analyzes all of the data from the various sensors to manipulate the steering, acceleration, and braking. So how effective are these systems? It turns out extremely effective. Were public hesitancy not a factor, every car on the road would be replaced with an autonomous vehicle within a couple of years. Every truck would be fully autonomous by now, and there would be no Uber or Lyft drivers, only autonomous cabs. Accidents would happen and people would still die as a result. But by some estimates, 90% of traffic fatalities around the world could be prevented with autonomous vehicles. Autonomous cars may need to recharge, but they don't need to sleep, take breaks, and they are single-mindedly concerned with carrying out the instructions in their programming. We fall asleep, we drive drunk, we get distracted, or we're simply bad at driving, and the consequences are both costly and deadly. A little over 1 million people die every year on the road around the world, and the move to autonomous commercial trucking alone could cut transportation costs for some companies in half. Yet the public is not convinced, and they become more skeptical with each report of an accident involving a self-driving car. Most famously, one of Uber's self-driving prototypes killed a pedestrian in 2018. This was a huge public relations setback for the whole industry, but manufacturers are taking every possible precaution. On top of the impressive list of technological features, scientists are also using AI to teach cars how to drive. A novel model developed by MIT and Microsoft researchers identifies instances in which autonomous systems have learned from training examples that don't match what's actually happening in the real world. Engineers could use this model to improve the safety of artificial intelligence systems, such as driverless vehicles and autonomous robots. The AI systems powering driverless cars, for example, are trained extensively in virtual simulations to prepare the vehicle for nearly every event on the road. But sometimes the car makes an unexpected error in the real world, because an event occurs that should but doesn't alter the car's behavior. It's unclear exactly how much these cars will retail for when they're finally available, but it stands to reason that they won't be cheap, at least initially. Even though Google's Waymo division just cut down their LiDAR construction by 90%, the vehicles will inevitably be pricey to recoup their massive investments. However, there's at least one bit of good news for consumers. Experts believe that driverless cars will likely cruise around cities to cut down on the cost of parking. Even factoring in wear and tear, gas mileage, depreciation, and maintenance, most people believe it will only cost 50 cents an hour to cruise, much less expensive than even the cheapest paid parking. But critics are quick to point out that this trend will clog the streets and waste fuel. City planners are working to find a feasible solution for the thousands of wandering cars that may now plague cities. Their work will be cut out for them, as self-driving cars sound more and more appealing. Based on models at this year's Los Angeles Auto Show, self-driving cars will indeed be billed as sleek, high-end models. For instance, BMW's Vision iNext model will have all invisible controls. On top of this, the interior of the Vision iNext was inspired by the architecture of boutique hotels. Rather than a traditional car layout, the cabin transforms into a lounge, with seats that swivel to face each other, allowing for easier communication with passengers. Instead of screens or buttons, there are touch sensors that are invisibly integrated into the front dash, as well as the rear seats. Occupants of the car can access the car's function by either pressing or drawing on the wood or fabric. So when can we expect to see these cars on the road? Though there are dozens of companies in the race, we'll explore the top handful of contenders. First is Google's Waymo. Waymo is a clear leader in the driverless car race right now. Its autonomous vehicle fleet has racked up more than 10 million miles of experience on the road and another 7 billion virtual miles in simulations. Some analysts project the Alphabet subsidiary could eventually be worth $175 billion. It's also one of the only companies that has a permanent autonomous ride-sharing program already set up in a city. While other companies are testing limited routes in cities, Waymo's early rider program allows people in Phoenix, Arizona to use its self-driving vans the way they would use any other taxi service, to go back and forth to school, work, or the grocery store and run errands. The company has also tested out pricing options, though it isn't charging its volunteer riders. It's one of the first programs of its kind, and in 2019, Waymo will ramp it up. The company says it will launch a commercial version of the early rider program at the very end of 2019 in multiple cities. If Waymo meets its timeline, it will likely have the largest self-driving ride-hailing service in operation next year. Most see General Motors as the runner-up in this race. GM already has a fleet of self-driving vehicles that it's been testing through its Cruise Automation subsidiary, and the automaker has plans to begin mass-producing fully autonomous cars without steering wheels or pedals starting in 2019. General Motors says it intends to launch its own commercial ride-hailing service in 2019, starting in San Francisco. The company hasn't shared all the details yet, but did say it plans to charge passengers about $1.50 per mile, which is about 40% lower than most human-operated ride-hailing services charge. And coming in third place is Uber. Uber is no stranger to the ride-hailing business, of course, and it has always had its eye on developing self-driving technologies, with the idea that it would eventually launch an autonomous version of its popular service. Those hopes were stalled after one of the company's autonomous vehicles was involved in a fatal crash in Arizona earlier this year. Shortly after that, Uber paused its program, which left its autonomous vehicle ambitions up in the air. But recently, the company applied for approval in Pennsylvania to begin testing its self-driving vehicles again. The company says it has improved its software and that its systems now detect people and objects sooner and react to them faster. The reboot of Uber's program comes on the heels of its recent deal to partner with Toyota on autonomous vehicles. So, will 2019 be the year of the self-driving car? Only time can tell. Elon Musk claimed that he would have autonomous cars on the road by 2018, and now that deadline has come and gone. Perhaps this is the year it all becomes a reality. While most companies are focusing on driverless rideshare programs, it turns out there are many more applications for the industry. For instance, America's largest grocery store chain Kroger just launched a program offering fully driverless deliveries. Kroger is using unmanned autonomous vehicles to deliver groceries in Scottsdale, Arizona. The company has a partnership with Nuro, a Silicon Valley startup that offers a self-driving service. Customers will be able to use the service by placing an order on the Fry's Food Store's mobile app or website. When you place an order, you can choose from same-day or next-day delivery. The service is available 7 days a week for a $5.95 flat fee with no minimum order requirement. For now, you can only use it in Scottsdale, Arizona, but it may expand in the future. Initially, these deliveries were made by Toyota Priuses that Nuro had outfitted with sensors and software. There were also safety drivers behind the wheel. Nuro says it has made 1,000 deliveries using these vehicles since August. Nuro isn't the first company to offer autonomous delivery services. Competitors like Marble and Starship have been offering autonomous vehicle deliveries for a while, but those startups have built robots designed to operate on sidewalks, which means they mostly move at walking speeds. By contrast, Nuro vehicles are designed to operate on public streets. They can move up to 25 miles per hour, allowing them to cover a larger area and get goods to customers more quickly. So where is all of this headed? Now that driverless cars seem like an inevitability, what can we expect in the future? Self-driving vehicles will change the nature of our cities. We will likely need fewer parking spaces, and maybe less likely to buy cars. Today, most cars sit unused 95% of the time. If we cut this in half, we'll need fewer cars. With these possibilities on the horizon, it's no surprise that 3/4 of consumers are excited about self-driving vehicles, and 2/3 say they're willing to trade out their current vehicle for a self-driving one. Besides autonomous cars, flying vehicles will also play a part in mobility and future transportation. The Terrafugia Transition flying car, for example, is expected to go on sale in the United States next year for $400,000. It can turn into a plane in less than 60 seconds and fly 160 kilometers per hour with a range of about 645 kilometers. Experts don't believe that these will be used for everyday commutes anytime soon, but the fact that the technology is fully developed is pretty amazing. There's even a robust discussion surrounding 3D printed cars, as these will lower the cost of construction exponentially. Either way, we are entering a new era of transportation. Cars will take on a new utility, and many drivers will opt to rideshare and carpool instead of owning a car, hopefully reducing the environmental impact of our daily commute. Until then, look for driverless cars on the road sometime in the next year.